understanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Teachers Talk Radio Live, as always, on this Thursday evening. We've got a really exciting conversation coming up for you in the next hour or so about educational travel. It's a topic we haven't actually covered that much on TTR over the last 4 years, really. So I'm really excited to be able to get into this with two expert guests coming from different places, I guess, in the sort of matrix of how we talk about educational visits and trips. But we'll come on to that in a minute. First of all, the show is brought to you this evening by NST Travel. Now, NST are the UK's leading educational tour operator, so it'll be really good to get into the conversation around that too. I'm also joined by my co-host from Teachers Talk Radio, Darren Lester. Darren, how are you this evening?
I'm all right, Tom. How are you?
Not too bad. Darren, I don't know whether should we introduce our guests who are joining us this evening?
I mean, that would be the gentlemanly thing to do, wouldn't it? I suppose.
I mean, me and you could just carry on talking.
We could.
That'd
That'd be
be
right.
rude.
Yeah. We are joined this evening by my cat, because this wouldn't be one of my shows if the cat didn't make an appearance. But more importantly than Pearl, we are joined by Dr. John Allan, who is coming to us with over 25 years of experience in academia, including both outdoor and education sectors, which is really exciting. His research even focuses on positive psychology. We love a bit of positivity here on Teachers Talk Radio, strength-based learning and resilience building across diverse populations and contexts. John is also a visiting fellow at Sheffield Hallam University, very impressive, I must say, and a senior fellow, even more impressive, of the Higher Education Institute. And over recent years, he has authored a range of peer-reviewed articles in international journals. He has edited books. He has presented conference symposia. He has done keynote addresses. He has done industry podcasts, webinars. John is who I want to be when I grow up. Dr. Allan, it's so good to have you here this evening.
Will, good evening to you. How are you doing this evening?
Good evening, Tom, Darren, John. I'm good, thanks.
Do you know what? The sort of length of John's intro suggests that yours is going to have to be as long as John's, because otherwise that just wouldn't be fair.
Yeah, okay, I'll do my best.
Darren, this had better be good.
Okay, all right, let's see. So, as well as being a head of student wellbeing at Accrington Academy, Will teaches maths and computing. So we have got an all-rounder right here. Will has been teaching for 24 years in both Scotland and England, which is very cool because those two systems are more different than they might first appear. So it'll be interesting to get that range of experience, and has been heavily involved in school trips quite literally from day one, on which he escorted a group of pupils to Edinburgh Zoo. What better way is there to kick off your teaching career, to be fair, than a trip to the zoo?
Absolutely. 24 years ago today, in fact. Yeah.
Oh, even better. There we go. And then you're celebrating your teaching anniversary with us right here. I mean, you know,
Darren.
Appreciate that. I appreciate that. In addition to all of this, Will has travelled the world with students. He's done day trips in the UK, he's done residentials, he's done international trips to Malawi and New York. Kind of puts my trip to Paris to shame, to be fair, which makes Will a champion for educational travel and fully understanding of its benefits. How did I do?
Fantastic. Thanks very much. It's like, this is your life. Thank you.
I liked it. Yeah, I wanted to kick off by just, and maybe this would be one more for Will and for John, but it could also be for John, is about our memories of educational trips and visits.
Well, do you know what? Some of my best memories of taking residential trips are I think some of the more simpler things. Things like a student who's never been on a trip before, watching and talking them through their first night of how they're going to sleep when it's not their familiar bed, when it's not their familiar room. Talk to them about how they can go and get food from the counters, how they can go and get the food that they want to get. They don't have to ask us for everything. Just seeing the faces of enjoyment. In Africa, the first time we saw elephants, and the kids, all their jaws just fell wide open. It was just such an amazing... I was more looking at the kids than looking at the animals at that point, because the kids were just absolutely loving it. There's just been some fantastic things.
Brilliant. My memories, lots of them, of taking young people away abroad. But mainly my first memories of my first trips myself, going into an unknown situation, and just having really, really sort of authentic, memorable experiences. In the Yorkshire Dales, not far from where I live, actually. And I've been back there as an adult and taken my kids to the places that I was taken to. So it shows that there's significant resonance that comes about as a result of these experiences. And this is when I was 8 or 9 years of age. Fantastic times.
It's funny, isn't it, how those memories sort of stay with you. And we are creating those memories, and we're giving some kids who may not have it that cultural capital, so that in 10, 15, 20 years time, they will be having these same conversations and remembering the first time they went abroad, that time they were shouted at by a security guard in France and they didn't know what was going on. And it's those formative experiences that are so important.
Yeah, I mean, now I understand some of the mechanisms of our psychology around that. It's this sort of multi-sensory experience. It's getting away from a more formal educational environment and having a range of different experiences socially, emotionally, and what we call cognitively, thinking and having to deal with those challenges. I think that's really important.
And I think it's important for us as well as teachers. This show, we will quite rightly focus on the benefits for our young people. But there is something quite nice about being able to think, oh, this is an experience that I have always wanted to have. This is a place that I've always quite liked to visit, to go to. And the school is offering that opportunity. Or, I can offer that opportunity along with my young people, and we can experience it for the first time. So, I think there is a lot to be said for the well-being and the benefits to us as teachers, as well as to our young people. So, we're gonna start by saying, if you ever get the chance to go on a trip, go on one.
Oh yeah, and we've got a school index annual report that's come out, and we've found that there's still a good third of young people choose subject matter because there's a trip associated with it, which is really important. It shows that desire, that inspiration is there. We just have to help facilitate and grow that that awareness and need for those sorts of experiences that are crucial.
Absolutely. I mean, that's always, when I worked in a brick and mortar school, that was always the question that we were asked at year 9 options evening. So, as MFL, I would be asked, is there a French trip? Is there a trip to Japan? When are we going to China? And, those are the things that they want. They're the experiences that they look forward to. And increasingly, they are things that parents are wanting. They want us to be able to give their children these opportunities. I remember when it became very clear after the second COVID lockdown and we went back into school and it became clear that we weren't going to lock down again, one of the first things that we were asked was, when are trips going to happen again? When are we going to start? We want our young people to go. And the appetite was there both from the kids, from the parents, and from the teachers, because we understand that benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. We had the same situation, Darren. And from that, within a couple of months of coming back, we had already gotten on and booked our New York trip. Such was the parents were so keen for their children to experience things, even if they weren't sure about flying or they weren't sure about traveling, which we still see. They want their children to experience it.
Yeah,
and it's just an amazing thing to see, and it's a brilliant thing for them to do.
Absolutely. And that must have been, Will, sort of in the wake of COVID and with different countries having different regulations and everything, that must have been really difficult to organise, because we all know the organisation is.
It absolutely was. And when we went to New York, we had to wear masks around New York. We had to wear masks in the Math Museum when we were in there. But it was just interesting, and we got on with it because it was an experience. It was something the kids wanted. It was that once in a lifetime opportunity for many of them. And we weren't going to let that stop us and stop them having such a great time.
That's good to hear.
It's really great to hear that. Yeah. No, yeah, I just think, teachers sometimes are unsung heroes, and they've been left post-COVID with significant challenges, not for just the children's well-being and mental health, but also their own. And I think it's really important that the organisation I work for try and take some of that burden and trying to share and challenge some of these things that teachers are facing every day. They're expected to come up with innovative ideas to challenge young people and blend sort of curriculum with confidence of young people, to be able to do these things. So, yeah, thanks, Will, and teachers like you, because I think it's crucial that we've got those advocates out there.
Oh, thank you. I mean, we had 72 of us going, which was a big number for New York, but NST were absolutely amazing with us organising it. But the subway is always a bit of an interesting time when there's that many.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. Cannot even imagine. But I think, sadly, I know, in my own subject, in languages, we do quite often have the conversation where we're weighing up the pros and cons of taking our young people to target language country. In the Asian languages that I teach, for example, we sit there and we go, can we take these young people to China? What does that workload look like for us? What is the cost going to be to the parents? Because that's always going to be a big barrier. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe this is just my perception, but I do feel like now more than ever, there are increasing barriers in our way to providing educational visits. And John, I was just wondering, like, from your point of view, given your research, everything that you've done in academia, is that a concern to you?
Oh, very much. Yeah, crucial. And post-Brexit and everything else that goes along with that, and cost is a most significant factor and a significant barrier. It really does worry me that we are preventing young people and generations of young people to have these formative experiences that are crucial for their psychosocial development. The earlier we can get them exposed to these experiences, it's likely they're going to do better in terms of mental health, well-being, academic attainment, you name it. We tend to think these trips are just curriculum-based experiences, which they are, but the added value, the wider aspect of the benefits that these things attribute are just, off the scale sometimes. And I think we've seen that with with the deconditioned young people now that post-COVID that are around, unfortunately. So yeah, we need to break those barriers down. And I've been involved with some research, and we are looking, particularly at the moment, working with Learning Outside the Classroom, an organisation, and some of the other outdoor industry specialists of trying to identify and then come up with a strategy to try and break some of these barriers down.
That's good. I'm so relieved to hear that there are people working on this, because, you know, when we talk about cultural capital, which is a bit of a thing of mine, we always talk about it in very abstract terms, but it is exactly, John, what you've just explained. It's not a tick box exercise where we have to prove that we are providing cultural capital to our young people. It is actually giving them experiences. It's giving them cognitive development. It's giving them psychosocial experiences, as you explained, that they may not be able to have otherwise. And it helps to bring that theory to
yeah. And I think Will probably agree with me on this. We do live now in an evidence-based practice environment where we need evidence to substantiate claims that we make. And that's, I suppose, a key aspect of my role is to provide credibility and look at data that can actually show that these formative experiences do predict better life outcomes for young people, and they do. And we've found, you know, significant increases in resilience, well-being, self-determined behaviour of youngsters that are exposed to out-of-classroom learning, whether that be a school trip or an adventure-based residential.
And Will, have you found that sort of with the young people that you work with? Have you found that their trips are giving them these? Oh, and God's not giving a cat that makes an appearance.
Right. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We find the exact same. The personal growth that a student can make, even just over a weekend residential, can be amazing to see at times. Taking them for longer, taking them for further, we'll obviously see a bit more growth. But whether it's through the educational learning that we can do on trips, through the sort of revision sessions, or whether it's through the actual physical activities, or whether it's just spending time together. One of my favourite things on some of the trips we do is sitting down for a meal. And we sit down for a meal with the kids. And we'll talk through our day like a big family. Maybe 20 of us sitting there. We'll talk through our day like a big family. There'll be no mobile phones. There'll be nothing like that there. And it gives the kids a chance to be kids.
Yeah.
And it gives the adults a chance to be adult as well, which is amazing and such a great thing. When we do trips, we take the kids' mobile phones off them at night, so they don't have them in the evening. And it's such a positive thing, because I don't know if I've said this, but it's allowing children to be children, which is so important, especially post-COVID.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know,
we found that in terms of research.
I was just going to say, you know, children are so desperate to be grown up, and they are so desperate to be seen as being mature and worldly and cool. But actually, if you give them the opportunity and you give them the space, they will be children.
Yeah. And what we see is that I know some of them want to be seen as grown up, but some of them are in situations where they have to be grown up. Yeah. They have to be the parent, they have to be the carer. And I know when we do trips, we always look at who our young carers are, who the people are looked after, people that we can take on those trips, people that we can give those experiences to actually get away from any of the worries that they have, any of the concerns, and just enjoy themselves. And just so that they can do that.
Yeah,
that's so important.
It is. It's amazing how many things educational visits impact and how important they are. So I would like to actually thank NST for sponsoring this show this evening, because I will be honest, you know, after 18 years, I have started to see educational visits as, this is just something we do. You know, we just take the kids to France. This is it's what we do. The year sixes go on their residential because it's the year 6 residential. And so it is nice to have this opportunity to sit down and be reminded of actually why we do it, so that it's not just, you know, because it's tradition.
Yeah, and sorry, Will, go.
Oh no, absolutely. I was just going to say, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Darren. Within educational establishments, there is sometimes that feeling that if you're doing these trips every year, that they just become the norm and they don't seem as special as they actually are. But to every one of those kids that we're taking, they are really special for them. And that's why we've written our academy school trip charter just for that purpose, to share it with staff, to show them the importance. And that's a really positive effect across the whole school.
And I mentioned earlier on about, having evidence base to substantiate it not just being an annual thing that we just churn out. And like you said, Will, it's really important for a diversity of young people to have this experience, irrespective of their background. And, we do have sort of capabilities to support some of these young people who find it difficult to access our programs. NST and across our PGL brand of products. One thing I was going to mention is that and I said right at the beginning, the lasting impact that these experiences have. We know that young people who have these experiences then are able to use that in another context, at home or wherever they are. So it's not just a one-shot issue, it's actually a lasting, endurable situation. And employers and further education establishment and higher education establishments are looking for people that have these really embedded soft skills that are really important and that are developed through these experiences. We know that now more than ever, because academic qualifications are seen now as being really important, but underpinning that is this capability to be able to be resilient, to be able to be creative, think critically. And these are the really essential skills that are developed through these formative experiences.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I would like to loop back round to some of the barriers that we were talking about before and see if we can kind of help our viewers to unpick them. Particularly, again, if we've got any ECTs or maybe more experienced teachers who haven't had the opportunity yet to lead a trip, who may be concerned about something. So if you are listening and you've got any questions for us here, please do drop them into the chat or get in touch with us via any of the TTR social media. We will do our best to kind of unpick it. So, Will, if I could start with you, I'm just interested in your experiences kind of working with organizations like those who are sponsoring us today, like NST, and there are a plethora of them out there, in terms of the help that is out there for teachers to actually physically organize the trip to start with.
Oh, absolutely. We've used NST for quite a few years now, and previously the EST on the Maths and Business Live, I think that you were talking about earlier on, which was a really good trip in Paris. But we've used these and they have been absolutely fantastic with us. Under the PGL Beyond umbrella, if we have any inquiries or any queries or anything that we wish to know, they will get back to us within a day. We've got Sarah at NST, who's absolutely fantastic with us. They also have an app which allows us to keep track of everything that we do within booking the trips. They keep us up to date with everything, so we can put all our passports, everything on in advance. They'll let us know about the passport requirements. We did have one issue in the past with a student who wasn't allowed entrance into the US because as a child she'd been to a barred country, which was something that if anyone is booking US trips, please check that beforehand with the ESTAs. But NST worked alongside us with that, and they were great with it. I know there are a lot of barriers, but we kind of, once you get into the hang of this, you just sort of hit them and pass through them. It just becomes part of the norm, and that you see, okay, well, this thing's caused. I mean, we've been to Malawi in the past, and we had to apply for visas for all the students, which took roughly an hour and a half for each child to apply to get all the paperwork. But then the next year we were much quicker with it, and then the third year.
I think, well, you mentioned NST there. I mean, it does help having a provider who are very hands-on and sort of on it, doesn't it? Because I've worked with, I won't name other providers, but back in the day, I worked with one or two, and even the small gaps became, big issues. So I think it's vital to work with
Yeah,
with
absolutely. NSD have been fantastic with us. As I said, Sarah there, she's any concerns, any issues we've had, she's been there to answer them. Even when we were away, there was a 24-hour line that we could call to sort of combat any issues. She has helped us with our risk assessment visits as well, helped us organise all those kind of things, which a lot of people aren't quite sure of whenever they book these trips. We had been using NST for quite a few years before they then became a partner of our Academy Trust, which has also really helped as well. And it gives us that one main point of contact for all the trips that we do, whether it be New York, whether it be Spain or the other ones as well. So it's really good having that sort of one-to-one experience, that one-to-one help with someone who we've grown to trust.
No, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, the other thing I was going to dig into as well, because I know we sort of touched on it earlier, but before we get into the barriers, but I was just wanted to ask John about, can you give me the specific, because you mentioned the importance of the evidence and so on. Can you give me something specific, just something to say, okay, here's your headline, Tom. Here's the headline for evidence-informed practice on trips.
I mean, the evidence is overwhelming in many respects. If you look at systematic reviews of evidence that looks at the impact of these experiences, it's everywhere. It's just not, what it doesn't do really is look at the processes, the things that make the difference. And Will mentioned it earlier on, and I did some research with thousands of young people looking at what is it about a trip or an out-of-class experience that makes the difference. So we know if we measure before and after, we're going to get an impact on things like resilience, self-determination, well-being. And I'm really pleased, Will, that you've highlighted the benefits of what NST do, because what they do and what we do is to take away that stress and those barriers. And we are moving towards looking at evidence-based material now to actually make it even more impactful. But going back to what I was saying, it's the things in the middle, the things like the meal times, the social collaborations between staff and students, and peer connections that are established, seeing people in a different context, in a different light, mastering new skills, being able to master these things, and just immersion within the culture, and just appreciating difference is so crucial. And we've measured those elements, and we know that the more that young people are exposed to those experiences, the more likely they are to be able to adapt when they get back home. So their resilience, their capability to adapt to different circumstances that they will face in the future have been enhanced by that experience that they can draw upon later. There's empirical data to support that. I mean, we got a 36% increase in resilience from over hundreds of young people that we measured, and we're continuing to do that now within our brands.
Thank you so much for that. That's exactly it. That makes perfect sense. And the resilience bit does absolutely. I mean, I sort of expected you to say that. It does help with that, doesn't it? Just that push.
Oh, completely. It's probably the thing that is. It's the thing that's talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And it's so important, isn't it? I was reading something in the paper just this week about, GCSEs are making kids too stressed. Should we scrap them? And there was a lot there about, child well-being, emotional well-being, and resilience. And, when you think about the fact that we have got those COVID classes now are the ones going through the GCSEs, it kind of makes sense if they haven't been on the because they couldn't go. So it makes sense if their resilience is lowered. So any school who has resilience as one of their core values, key concepts, whatever you might call it, it sounds to me like trips are going to be educational visits, going to be a good way to really build that. And it's, resilience is something that is really difficult to build in the classroom as well. It's really hard to tell a child, keep going, you can do it. You will be able to conjugate these verbs. You will be able to solve that differential, whatever it might be, and have it actually mean something. Whereas if they're in a situation where they almost have to push through, Otherwise, they're not going to. You know, if they don't go and ask in French for their baguette, then they're not going to have one. It kind of, I don't know, puts them. It makes it necessary. Makes that resilience necessary.
It's the real consequences as well of your action. You get an immediate response. It's authentic. It's real. It's sensory. It's there. You're able to stimulate and accumulate meaning in one experience. You know, it's something that cannot be replicated in, and I think I said this at the beginning, in more uniform, predictable environments. And I think, yes, the exam system is very important, but we need to understand that these skills need to sit alongside. In fact, they underpin academic attainment. You can't tell someone to do their homework. They have to be able to see the meaning and the importance of that themselves. So that self-determined learning is crucial.
Oh, it's also interesting how everything just kind of feeds into each other, and all of these things that we perpetually talk about as barriers, you know, things that we want to improve in our young people, we can solve so many of them just by feeding into things like educational visits and really doing them deliberately, in terms of our deliberate practice, knowing why we're going and what we're going to get out of it, and making sure that our young people know what they're going to get out of it as well.
Completely. They have to be part of that contract, I suppose.
It's also really nice when you're in a restaurant on a trip and the kids suddenly start acting like adults. You know, you see them in the cafeteria, like chucking bits of potato at each other. And then suddenly you put them in like this restaurant, which isn't even a Michelin star. It's just a normal restaurant in a foreign city. And they suddenly turn into, you know, like, excuse me, John, can you pass me the sauce? You know, and it's like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. And it's like, yes, I will, no problem. And he passes it down to somebody who's previously been like fighting with each other. Do you know what I mean? It's really nice to see it. It's also as good as a teacher, because you sort of look at it and go, I know now you can do this. I know now you can do this, right? Because you've been, you know, and I can see now that this might be what you like with certain people, maybe at home or family or whatever, and you know, and it's nice to see it. It's nice to see it. 100%.
From a psychology point of view, though, as well, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because they're role playing. They are playing how to be a grown up in a restaurant. And you know, they at 15 they wouldn't break out the plastic food and do that at home in the same way they would have done when they were 4, but they can do it in the real life setting.
And it's also nice because actually you can see as well that kids who maybe they've been bullied in school, you know, and actually on an educational visit context, they almost become protected by the wider group. It'll come back to psychology, but because they're being taken out of an environment, they're like, well, actually, from sort of being I'm not saying bullying, but maybe picking on the kid a little bit, suddenly they're going, well, we're actually going to include this kid. And suddenly it's like, oh, and then they come back to school and it can have a positive difference there as well. Because then that carries on, that filters in. I'm not saying it changes everything, but
it's called, from a psychological perspective, it's called shared vulnerability. And that's really important, you know, but to be able to pass that and to have that caring and sharing and empathy being developed, again, really difficult to manufacture, but create these experiences and they become more natural and they become part and parcel of other forms of learning as well. It's so important for building sort of strengths in young people. Absolutely. Seeing a teacher in a different context has always been that mantra of, you know, breaking down barriers. Will probably attest to that.
Absolutely. And we talk about this. We talk about one of the main reasons that we do trips is to build those positive relationships with the students. The students get to see us in those positive situations out with the classroom. I'm not just standing there talking to them about maths. I could be taking them to see different things around the world. We could be standing on top of the Empire State Building. We could be, and they get to see that. They get to appreciate it. And you mentioned this earlier, Darren, but I every year when I get a nice card from different students, I don't get many because I'm getting old now, but I get nice cards from students, and it's always mentioning the trips that we do. They do, and they always mention the positive influence these trips have had on them, how they've changed their lives, how they have become a better person, how they met new friends, as you were saying, how they've met new friends, how they've been able to then go back and talk about it, how they've helped look after people, which has helped them to maybe understand their younger siblings a little bit better. And when they go home and they can help look after the younger siblings, or just they've had a chance to get away. But they do love to see us in that different environment, that we're human as well.
Yeah, and even from a scholarly perspective, from an academic perspective, that is also very important for many of our subjects. In languages, we could sit at the dinner table and model the fact that French isn't about saying, "Oh, last weekend I went to the park with my brother and ate pizza." It's about actually having a conversation with somebody at the dinner table.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, being British sucks, doesn't it?
I'm just getting flashbacks. I went to the cinema.
Pretty much, Darren, that's pretty much my whole life. You summarised in a nutshell. No, absolutely. I know we were just about to talk about barriers. So, one of the things that's come into my mind while we're talking about this is the cuts to spending on trips, cuts to cost of living, affecting families. So, how are you both sort of working to ensure that travel remains accessible then? How are you working to make sure that it's still going the way it should go?
I think within our situation, it really depends upon the trip, because obviously we have pupil premium money that we can use for certain students on trips. We sometimes use that for residentials. I know that PGL Beyond, PGL in particular, will have a hardship fund and have a PP fund for schools. I think I'm not going to say, I think it's over 40%, but I don't quote, because I think we're on 39, so we're just slightly under. But they have one on that. And we also make sure that we give a lot of advance notice. So when I'm doing my New York trip, I launch it 2 years in advance, and we do it every 2 years. And it means that our parents are paying £100 a month towards it, which is still a lot for some parents, but it's more manageable for them. And they're happy to do that because they want their kids to get a chance. For our residentials, again, we will do them as far as possible in advance. Megan at PGL is great with that, and she will ensure that we get absolutely everything that we can. And I mean, we've already got next June and next March booked in, and we'll let parents know about that to give them a chance to pay for them over time as well, and much less money each time.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think that's the one thing that parents want, isn't it? Is enough time to be able to pay it, because there would be nothing worse. I'm not a parent, but I feel like there would be nothing worse than if you had to say to your own child, "I'm really sorry, this is a large amount of money and we don't have it right now, and the school is asking for it."
On that, Dan, what we also do is when I'm organising a trip, before I tell the students, I email all the parents to give them a few days' notice before I tell the students, so that parents have that time to think about it and what they can say to their child if their child asks whether it's a yes or a no. And at least they've got that time to think about it. And it puts a little bit less pressure on them as well. Because as a parent myself, I know what it's like when your kid comes in with a letter for an expensive trip somewhere, and it's like, all my mates are going, are they yet?
Yeah, that's it. It must be, it must be difficult, I feel, to juggle that. And I think as a teacher as well, sometimes asking for money can feel really awkward. Because we do it quite a lot for non-school uniform days, for fundraising, bake sales, and then you send a letter home that is like, "Oh, do you want to pay a couple of grand to come to China?" And the parents have to find that money from somewhere. So
that's especially, I mean, we're in a postcode that's the bottom 1% deprivation in the country, so it is a lot. It is very difficult for us, and we do fundraising, and we have to do fundraising just to get the money in to help some of the kids as well.
All right, so I want to talk now a little bit about employability. So, John, you will know in academia, employability is the big thing. It's what we talk about a lot. It's on kind of the front page of every university website is what job you can do with certain degrees. And, even when we get our young people choosing what GCSE options they're going to do, they are thinking about them in employability terms. So I was just wondering, from your point of view, how do school visits in general help with that employability? What kind of employability skills are our young people going to take away from those?
I think, from my perspective, and I'll give you a brilliant example of this, okay? I have a student who went with me on a battlefield tour, a former student, who now works for the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. And they were directly not only inspired, but they started to understand what the Commonwealth War Graves Commission actually does on the trip. So they had no idea who they were, and from that planted the seed, and now they've ended up working for them directly. So there you go. So I mean, employability, I think that's one example, right? But actually also, because, and listen, Darren and me, we'd have a good conversation about this. The way that sort of teaching is going, Will as well. My God, I just forgot you're still there in Manchester doing it. We can all talk about this. But the way, yeah, no worries. The way teaching's going is that maybe they're having less opportunities to do the whole sort of. We were talking about this the other day, like allowed to do stuff in a independent way, and maybe a bit more speaking, right? With big emphasis on oracy. But you think about the way a lot of schools now are structuring lessons. Here's a PowerPoint. Here's a retrieval quiz. You write the retrieval quiz down. The teacher reads from the PowerPoint. The students answer a comprehension question from the PowerPoint. The students then do a teacher-led quiz at the end of the lesson, and they leave and they do that lesson again and again. Now, I think there's more lessons like that happening now than there were 10 to 20 years ago. And in fact, I think in some environments, perhaps that is the only diet. Not the only diet, but it accounts for like 80, 90% of what's being digested. So when we talk about employability skills, educational visits for me offer something completely different, a different opportunity for social etiquette and social communication that they may not develop outside of school at all. And now they maybe have less opportunity to develop in school. What do you both think about that?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree to that. What you're saying about teaching, especially under Rosenshine principles and such things, that a lot of lessons are becoming like that. And unless you're using Think Turn Talk regularly for getting the discussions going, then there is that possibility that there's going to be less chance for the oracy and less chance to talk about things. The educational trips absolutely allow for that. They definitely do. And they allow us to talk about it, not just whilst we're there, but before we go. The excitement that the kids have, the excitement the kids talking to a kid that might not have spoken to you all year, all of a sudden you say, like, we're doing a jump works trip in a few weeks for anybody who's done all their maths homework all year. Kids are all of a sudden speaking to us, you know.
Yeah,
they're a real person, yeah, and they'll talk to us, they'll chat away, and they'll be like, "Yeah, oh, sir, I really want to go on that. What do I need to do? What do I need to do?" Well, you know, talk to your mates, find out what kind of things you want to do if you go, and what we have, and then they get to speak to people. But also, I think what's important in there as well, and you did touch on this there, is the cultural side of it, and that not every member from every culture gets to experience everything. But when you're on a school trip, everyone gets to experience it. Everyone is equal on a school trip. It doesn't matter your background, your wealth, your race, your religion, gender, none of that matters. Everybody gets to experience the same thing. And they really are the ultimate equalizer as a school trip when you're on it. It just gives everybody the chance to, enjoy it. Yeah.
And, you know, if especially in schools that have gone for the silent corridor model as well, there may then not be any opportunity to actually just have a casual conversation with anybody during the day. And so then, you know, if you're on the educational visit, you take them outside, they learn how to have a casual conversation with their peers, but they also learn how to have a casual conversation with adults and, you know, what is and isn't appropriate to say to an adult when you are being casual with them. And it's taking the starchiness away from how we speak in school, isn't it? And it's helping them to communicate as people as opposed to as students.
Yeah, it's allowing them to feel like they're human beings at the end of the day, and that we're all in this boat together. Because when it comes to trips and things are going great, or maybe something goes wrong along the way, everyone is together, and the kids will see that, and the kids will help you with things in so many ways. And that's one thing we don't really talk about, is how the positive attitudes of the children when you are up at 4 o'clock checking the doors in the morning, Tom, but the positive attitudes of so many of the children at other times on the trip.
Yeah. And that's so good for their well-being, isn't it? To look at us and to know that actually when we say, yes, I care about you, we're not just blowing smoke. They know that they come into our classrooms and we do actually care.
Yeah, and it is one of the other things as well, which I think is really important. And this happened to us a few years ago in a different school. We took a trip away, and I think it was about 20 on the trip. And there was a couple of lads there who came from single-parent families with no fatherly input. And we found that we're on these trips that we become those instant fathers. Yeah. And with the permission of the mothers, we were actually able to show them how to shave for the first time, which was an amazing experience to be part of. The mums wanted us to do it because they said they weren't sure. So they said, can you do this while you're away and show them? And it was, I mean, it's something, no one gets into teaching and thinks, I'm going to show a kid how to shave. But you know what? It's one of those things. It's one of those things that kids appreciate. It's one of those things that makes us absolutely love the job we do.
So I'm just wondering, first of all, Will, have you noticed any change in kind of the destinations that people have been going to, or maybe the destinations that kids have been asking for? That's kind of what I'm interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've just done a Spanish trip out to Barcelona. Spanish trips are becoming much more popular. I think Ofqual say in the last 10 years that students doing GCSE French have dropped 25% and Spanish has increased 40%. Look at me telling the NFL person this, I'm sure you'll know. Yeah. but it does mean that the Spanish trips have become much more popular, and not just for the MFL department, but also for our sports department. With they've just been to Villarreal doing training with some of the Villarreal coaches over there. It's always been a popular place for sports, as Spain. And I think that's also got part to do with why the language is so popular. I mean, kids always want to go to the USA, though. They always do. They want to go and experience it. And the parents want to go and want to send the kids away so the kids will come back and talk about it. Yes, I think, I mean, the kids have started asking us about South America now, which is an interesting one. So yeah, that's something to look into for the future.
I mean, your Spanish department will be all over that, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, I'll have to go as well.
Obviously, yeah. You know, I think.
The language is important, isn't it? You know, the shift now from France to Spain. We're finding as well within the school index report that Iceland's becoming very popular for geography and geology trips, and New York for business. So, you know, it will change. It will alter, won't it? I mean, however, you know, like I said, the fundamental building blocks that are really important cut across wherever you go. You know, it's all relative, isn't it, for young people? They may have not gone out of their own environment ever, and then all of a sudden they go into a very different environment. So that level of adaptability capability is going to be prevalent wherever they go. It's those skill sets are still going to be there, I think.
Yeah, you preempted my spin-off question, John, because I was going to ask whether it matters where we go. You know, how important is the destination versus the journey? That sounds a bit millennial of me, doesn't it? I don't like that.
I think the journey is everything, personally.
We've taken kids to Africa who had told us they've never been further than the service station 8 miles away from the town that we're based in. Yeah. There's how important your journey is.
But actually, I mean, that's a very good point, though, because I've done the same. I've done German markets here in the UK. Because, you know, German being not a very popular language couldn't justify going to Germany. So we did an authentic market here in the UK. But it probably was further away, like school to where we went, than a lot of our kids had actually been. So even sort of, you know, staying within the country, it can still be a big experience for them, a big change for them.
Yeah, we've taken kids
yeah,
to
I mean,
PGL, Newby Wiskin, when Marley, and that's the first time they've been sort of anywhere other than the town that they live in, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just going to say that a lot of the research that I did early on was with inner city young people who'd never been out of that environment. We talk about the fact that school trips and adventure holidays are very important, but some of these kids need very supportive environments as well as the challenge that goes along with it in order to enable them to become more confident in their own skin and then move out of that in a progressive way. So although we say these things are all amazing, and they are, it is a progressive, more slower sort of process in many respects now because of COVID and inequality and diversity of opportunity.
That's Chris has commented. Some students in inner city London have never taken a train out of London and have never seen a cow or sheep with their own eyes. Sometimes local trips can be life changing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They are life-changing. They are. In fact, big green spaces can be quite scary. And we talk about, get kids out in nature, and that's really, really important, but it has to be a progressive, what we call progressive overload. We have to be careful.
Yeah, and the same vice versa. So it's saying the same vice versa. We are a very green area. And when we take kids to New York for the first time, some of them get quite scared, because they're really not used to that type of city.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's funny, I don't know whether this was Tom's talk about the battlefield tours and stuff, but sort of reading what Chris said there, I was thinking about how you read evacuee diaries, and it's the same thing, isn't it? It's these London kids who have never seen a cow or a sheep. And we hope that we've moved on sort of as a society since then. But actually, so many of our young people are having those exact same experiences now. And thankfully, we don't need a world war to get them out into the countryside.
Yeah. What we try to do, and with NST and others, is to bring nature and bring the experiences to them. And we are. I mean, within PGL Beyond, we are thinking about mobile experiences as well being really important. And some of the research really suggests that a lot of local planning and organisations within the cities need to sort of create green space opportunities, so it doesn't become that much of a shock then, and it becomes more of a natural expectation. And we as an organisation are very aware of that, of working within industry and trying to create more inclusive opportunities for young people who haven't got that capability. So there is a breakthrough fund and all sorts of other mechanisms that we use.
Do you want to tell us that, John, what that is, the breakthrough fund?
Well, these are sometimes subsidised trips or creating opportunities. At the moment, we're doing a lot of thinking around that accessibility being crucial. And as a leading organisation within the sector, we feel we have an obligation to make some of these commitments, and working with people like Will and others. It's not just a hard sell, it's actually working in collaboration within the educational and outdoor sector, in order to enable some of these problems in society to be addressed through research and other mechanisms.
Got you.
I really like that, because it's becoming clear to me how NST is using technology in order to broaden the horizons and break down some of these barriers. I kind of like this idea that a company that specializes in visits and taking the kids out of the classroom, where we might think that they were leaving the technology behind, is embracing technology in order to make it easier for us as the teachers and to make it more accessible for the young people.
Brilliant. Guys, thank you so much for coming on this show. We'll be back again very soon on TTR. Take care, everybody out there, and have a wonderful evening. And cheers, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Outstanding and world-class vision, world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused,